The summons the Void Heart, flagship of the Zirian Dominion's Third Fleet, drifted through the nebula like a sleeping titan. Its bioluminescent hull pulsed with an ethereal blue light, casting shadows across the assembled armada that stretched beyond the horizon of space. Tomorrow would bring the Battle of Kepler's Gate, a confrontation that would either secure the Dominion's survival or witness its complete annihilation. Queen Nyxera Veltharion stood before the massive viewport of her command chamber, her 6 arms folded in ritualistic meditation. The crystalline formations jutting from her shoulders caught the starlight, refracting it into prismatic patterns across her midnight blue skin. For 3 centuries, she had ruled the Zirian people with calculated precision, never once allowing emotion to cloud her judgment. Her subjects whispered that she possessed no heart, only the cold logic of a perfect strategist, but tonight, something stirred within the depths of her consciousness. A memory, perhaps, or a desperate recognition of what tomorrow might bring. The Terran Coalition's newest dreadnoughts had proven unexpectedly formidable, their adaptive technology countering every Zirian advantage. Her analysts projected a 67% probability of defeat, numbers that would have been unthinkable just months ago. "My queen," came a voice from behind her. General Kythera, her most trusted advisor, approached with cautious steps. "The human delegation awaits your response. Captain Thorn of the Resilience has offered to coordinate the joint strike on the Coalition's primary battle group." Nyxera's tertiary eyes, the smaller pair above her main ones, flickered with something resembling uncertainty. "Thorn," she repeated, the name carrying weight that Kythera couldn't comprehend. "Yes, I remember him from the Proxima incident. He showed unusual courage for a human. Shall I inform him that you declined the alliance, as protocol demands?" For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then, with a gesture that surprised even herself, Nyxera spoke. "No. Send word to Captain Thorn. Tell him Queen Nyxera requests his presence in my private chambers within the hour. Alone." Kythera's mandibles clicked in confusion. "My queen. Surely you have your orders, General." As Kythera departed, Nyxera returned her gaze to the stars. Somewhere among them, aboard the human vessel Resilience, Captain Marcus Thorn was receiving a summons that would change everything. She could almost see him now, those steady brown eyes, the scar across his left temple from shrapnel that had been meant for her, the way he'd looked at her during the Proxima crisis, not as an alien threat, but as a person worth saving. Tonight, she would remove more than just her ceremonial crown. Tonight, she would remember what it meant to be vulnerable. The arrival, the docking bay of the Void Heart hummed with bioluminescent activity as Captain Marcus Thorn's shuttle touched down. The human vessel seemed almost primitive compared to the organic curves and living metal of Zirian technology, yet Thorn had learned to appreciate the elegant fusion of biology and engineering that characterized their ships. The air itself seemed to pulse with life, carrying scents of ozone and something floral that reminded him of jasmine. Thorn adjusted his dress uniform as he disembarked, noting the unusual absence of the ceremonial guard that typically accompanied diplomatic meetings. Instead, only a single Zirian attendant waited, a young female with silver-traced skin who bowed deeply before speaking. "Captain Thorn, Her Majesty awaits you in the Heart Chamber. Please, follow the golden path." She gestured toward a series of softly glowing nodes embedded in the deck plating, forming a trail that led deeper into the ship's interior. As Thorn walked the corridor, memories flooded back to the Proxima incident 18 months ago. The Joint Research Station had come under attack by separatist forces, and in the chaos, Queen Nyxera had been separated from her guard. He'd found her pinned beneath debris, her regal composure cracked for just a moment as pain flickered across her alien features. The choice had been simple: abandon diplomatic protocol and help, or watch a sentient being suffer. He'd chosen humanity over politics. The heart chamber door recognized his approach and delayed it open with a soft sigh. Inside, the walls curved organically upward, forming a dome lined with what appeared to be neural pathways that pulsed gently with soft light. At the chamber's center, a simple raised platform held 2 chairs, one designed for human physiology, the other for Zirian. Queen Nyxera stood with her back to him, and for the first time in Thorn's memory, she wasn't wearing her ceremonial armor. Instead, she wore a simple robe that revealed the natural iridescence of her skin, the way her crystalline growth seemed to respond to her emotional state with subtle color shifts. Her forearms hung loose at her sides, and her head was bare. No crown, no symbols of office. "You came," she said without turning around. Her voice, usually commanding and formal, carried an unfamiliar note of uncertainty. "You summoned me, Your Majesty." "Not as a queen." She turned slowly, and Thorn saw something in her large, multifaceted eyes that struck him speechless. Vulnerability. Fear. "Tonight, I am simply Nyxera. And tomorrow, I may be dead." The weight of her words settled between them like a physical presence. Thorn had seen battle-hardened soldiers break under less pressure than what she carried. The responsibility for billions of lives, the weight of an empire's survival, the impossible decisions that came with absolute power. It would crush anyone with a conscience. "The odds are against us," he said quietly. "But they've been against humanity before." "Humanity?" She moved toward him, her movements graceful despite their alien nature. "You showed me something about humanity once, Marcus Thorn. Something I had forgotten about all sentient life." The crown removed. Nyxera gestured toward the chairs, and they sat facing each other in the soft bioluminescent glow. The silence stretched between them, comfortable yet charged with unspoken understanding. Thorn studied her face, so alien yet somehow familiar after their shared experience. The way her tertiary eyes tracked his movements spoke of hypervigilance born from centuries of leadership, while her primary eyes held depths of exhaustion that no crown could hide. "Do you know what it means to rule a species on the edge of extinction?" she asked finally. "Every decision, every battle plan, every diplomatic maneuver carries the weight of genetic legacy spanning 2 million years. The Xyrian bloodline traces back to before your sun ignited, and tomorrow it might end with me." Thorn leaned forward slightly. "The same could be said for humanity. We've been in this galaxy for barely 3 centuries, and we've already made enemies of half the spiral arm. But we are still here. Because you refuse to accept defeat." A sound emerged from her throat, almost like laughter, but tinged with something darker. "At Proxima, when you found me trapped, your first instinct wasn't to calculate political advantage or strategic value. You saw suffering and moved to end it. No analysis, no committee consultation. Just an action born from compassion." She stood and moved to a curved section of the wall that responded to her touch, revealing a small alcove containing personal artifacts. Among them sat her ceremonial crown, not the battle crown she wore for public appearances, but something simpler, more personal. A circlet of crystallized Xyrian memory coral that held the experiences of every queen before her. "This crown connects me to my ancestors," she said, lifting it with 2 of her arms while the other 2 gestured to encompass the chamber. "Their memories, their wisdom, their expectations. But it also isolates. Queens are not permitted personal relationships. We are vessels for the continuation of our species, nothing more." Thorn watched as she turned the crown over in her hands, its facete surface catching the chamber's light and casting rainbow patterns across her features. "That sounds lonely." "Lonely?" She repeated the word as if testing its weight. "Yes. I believe that describes it perfectly. 300 years of perfect isolation, of making decisions that affect billions while having no one to truly share the burden with. Until Proxima, I had forgotten what it felt like to have someone care about my well-being rather than my political utility." She set the crown aside and returned to her chair, but this time she sat with a different posture, less regal, more human, if that word could apply. Her hands, all 4 of them, rested openly in her lap instead of being clasped in the formal positions of state. "Tomorrow, I lead my people into battle against an enemy that has learned to counter every advantage we possess. The probability matrices are unfavorable. If I fall, the succession crisis will destroy what remains of the Dominion faster than any human weapon." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "For the first time in my reign, I am afraid. Not of death, death is simply transition. I am afraid of failure." The admission hung between them like a bridge spanning 2 worlds. Thorn realized that in this moment, he wasn't sitting across from an alien queen, but from a person, a being carrying an impossible burden and finally allowing someone else to see the weight of it, the touch of understanding fear doesn't make you weak, Thorn said quietly. It makes you real. Nyxera's tertiary eyes widened slightly, a Xyrian expression of surprise that Thorn had learned to recognize. In your human philosophy, perhaps. But queens are taught to transcend such limitations. We are living symbols of certainty, of unwavering strength. Symbols aren't real, Thorn replied. They are just ideas we project onto people. But you're not an idea, Nixra. You're flesh and blood and thought and feeling. The fact that you can fear means you can love, that you can hope, that you understand what's at stake beyond mere numbers and strategic positions. Something shifted in her expression. A tremor that started in her tertiary eyes and spread to her primary ones. For a moment, her composure cracked completely, and Thorn saw something that perhaps no one else in the galaxy had ever witnessed. Queen Nixra Veltharion, brought to tears. The tears themselves were unlike anything human, crystalline formations that emerged from specialized glands and traced silver paths down her cheeks before dissolving into luminescent mist. Beautiful and alien and heartbreakingly honest. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to be anything other than what I was made to be. Without thinking, Thorn rose from his chair and moved to kneel beside hers. The gesture was unprecedented. Humans didn't kneel before alien royalty, and alien royalty didn't allow such intimacy. But in this moment, protocol seemed irrelevant compared to the basic need for connection. You don't have to be anything, he said. You just have to be you. When she looked down at him, her forearms moved in what might have been a shrug or a gesture of surrender. I don't remember who that is anymore. Then remember this, Thorn said, and carefully, so carefully, he reached out and took one of her hands in both of his. The contact was electric, not in any romantic sense, but in the simple recognition of shared consciousness. Her skin was warm, her grip stronger than any human's, but the tremor in her fingers spoke of the same fragility that defined all sentient life. Remember that you are someone worth saving, he continued. Not because you're a queen, but because you're a person who cares enough to be afraid. Because you carry the weight of others' lives as if they were your own. Because when you saw me at Proxima, you didn't see a useful tool, you saw someone who had chosen to help, and you remembered that choice. She stared at their joined hands, 4 arms, 2 species, 2 souls shaped by war and responsibility and the crushing weight of impossible decisions. You would have died for me that day, she said. A human, risking everything for a Zirian queen. I never understood why. Because it was right, Thorn replied simply. Because you needed help, and I could provide it. Because in that moment, species didn't matter, only the choice between compassion and indifference. Nixra's free hands came up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the scar that marked where shrapnel had cut him during their shared ordeal. This galaxy has made us into weapons, she said. But you refused to become one completely. So did you, Thorn said. Otherwise, you would never have summoned me here tonight. The heart that changed everything. They remained like that for a long time, 2 beings from different worlds, sharing a moment of perfect understanding in the heart of a living ship. The void heart's bioluminescence seemed to respond to their presence, pulsing in slow, rhythmic patterns that felt almost like a heartbeat. Outside, the fleet prepared for tomorrow's battle, but inside this chamber, time had taken on a different quality. Eventually, Nixra pulled back slightly, though she didn't release his hands. Tell me about Earth, she said. Not the tactical briefings or the diplomatic reports. Tell me what it feels like to have a home. Thorn smiled, thinking of blue skies and ocean winds. It's chaotic, he said. Billions of people, all trying to figure out how to live together. We argue constantly, make terrible mistakes, start wars over the smallest disagreements. But we also create beauty just because we can. Music that serves no strategic purpose, art that accomplishes nothing except making people feel something, stories that remind us we are all connected somehow. Connected, she repeated, as if the concept were foreign. Zirian society prizes individual excellence above all else. We are taught that strength comes from self-reliance, that dependence is weakness. Maybe that's why you're struggling against the coalition, Thorn said gently. Humans are individually weak, but we've learned to be stronger together. Every ship in tomorrow's battle will have a crew that functions as a single organism, people who trust each other enough to risk everything for their shipmates. Nixra considered this, her tertiary eyes focusing on something beyond the chamber. Walls. You're suggesting that my isolation, the very thing that defines Zirian leadership, is what's doomed us. I'm suggesting that maybe it's time to try something different. She stood then, moving to retrieve her crown from its resting place. But instead of placing it on her head, she held it out toward him. "Take it," she said. "I can't, not to keep. Just to hold it for a moment. Feel its weight." Thorn accepted the crown with both hands, immediately understanding what she meant. The crystalline structure was impossibly heavy, not with physical mass but with something deeper, the accumulated responsibility of an entire civilization. The memories of 2 million years of decisions, victories, failures, and the constant pressure of absolute authority. "How do you bear it?" he asked. "Tonight, I don't have to," she replied, and for the first time since he'd entered the chamber. She smiled. It was a Zirian smile, a subtle shift in the positioning of her features that humans might miss, but unmistakably genuine. "Tonight, someone else understands the weight." When he handed the crown back, their fingers touched again. And something passed between them, not romance, but recognition. The knowledge that in a galaxy full of strangers, they had found someone who truly saw them. "Tomorrow, I will be Queen Nixra again," she said, settling the crown on her head where it belonged. "I will lead my people in battle, make the hard choices, carry the burden of command. But I will remember this night. I will remember that beneath all the ceremony and protocol, I am still someone capable of connection." Thorn stood as well, their audience drawing to its natural close. "And I'll remember that the galaxy's most powerful queen is also one of its most human souls." As he prepared to leave, Nixra spoke one final time, "Captain Thorn. Marcus. Thank you for reminding me who I am." The next day, the Battle of Kepler's Gate would rage across 3-star systems. History would record it as the turning point in the war, the moment when Queen Nixra's revolutionary tactics, combining Zirian precision with human adaptability, shattered the coalition's advance. But history would never know that the victory began in a quiet chamber where an alien queen removed her crown and a human soldier helped her remember her heart.